Hello, I'm Luke, and in today's topic I want to ask you a question, but this question has a little bit of a context around it, so I'm going to give you a bit of a story first. The question relates, I guess, to this idea of meaning and purpose. It seems these days I have a lot of conversation with people where they're talking about trying to understand a little bit more around what is their purpose, what is the meaning for all of this, how can we find a little more meaning in our daily lives? And by no means is it that I have any answers, but rather engaging in this type of conversation I love because I find it fascinating. I find it really interesting to try and think about what makes us tick, why we do certain things, how we can change certain things, and so on. In this conversation, there's been a moment where I've kind of looked to go, where did it begin? Like where's the point in our lives where we had an opportunity to look at things differently? So for many of you, as you've probably seen in different topics I've had, I really believe in this idea of service. I think we all have something that we can share and something that we can offer, and ideally we can find a way to use our service that not only helps other people, but is also part of what we now classify as our career or our main source of income. If we can't, then there's absolutely these different ways of being able to find something that you're at least passionate about, but then also adding in this and tying in this element of service to it as well. So for me, service really matters. And then I'm looking at, well, where did we go? Not wrong, but where have we not asked the right questions along the way? So when I started kind of delving back into my own path, I got to this point around 12 or 13 years of age. I mean, at that point, your brain is fully developed and you're pretty much working within the analytical mind at that part. So you're starting to really develop and understand who you are and the world around you and so on. You've kind of moved out of the imaginary phase of being a child and into, I guess, the wonderful analytical world of being an adult. And when you get to around the age of 15, all of a sudden you go from a couple of years before where you were like dreaming about what you would love to be when you're older to quite literally being asked, well, what do you want to be when you're grown up? What career path do you want to follow? Because you're in school now and you've been in school the whole time, but you're in high school and you've got a couple of years left, and now you need to be really strategic in where you want to go. Asking a 15-year-old, what do you want to be when you grow up, is a big question. I remember when I was asked that question, I kind of went, I don't know. I had no idea. I can't even remember, really. I remember when I was young and I wanted to be an archaeologist. Something tells me I'm not quite good there. But going through life, we have these defining moments where we ask of people what they want to be. And I kind of look at it and think, well, how can a 15-year-old know that answer? And if they don't know their answer, maybe we're not asking the right question. Or if we're asking what type of career do you want, and we're finding that people are going through life and then maybe they're going to university and then they're dropping out of university because they don't really want to be the doctor or the lawyer or whatever it is they think they are. Or maybe they get through university and then they graduate and then they start doing the job and then they realize they absolutely hate the job. They don't know why they've wasted all this time doing it when really they ultimately wanted to be whatever other path they were thinking of. What are we asking at the start that's missing the mark? And could we ask something different that would hopefully take us down a different path and create a space where we can really be living to our truest potential? Now, I have reason for saying this whole story. It's because it came up with this question that I had. When we were younger, I was thinking, how different would it be within our schools and within our society and in our structure if instead of asking people, what do you want to be when you grow up, or what career do you want to follow, but instead said to people, how do you want to serve mankind? So my question for you today is, how would you serve mankind? If you were posed with this question, and it doesn't have to be when you were 15 or at any point in time, it can be right now, but if you're looking at life and you're kind of going, I don't really know which way to go, and there's a lot of people who are seeking more from life right now in terms of asking questions that maybe weren't asked before, or looking at life in ways that maybe they didn't think of looking at it before. I think ask yourself this same question. So for me, looking at service and the importance of service, it is one of the pillars that kind of lead to unity. And if we're looking at the world from a far greater scale and we're trying to think about what is it, we all need to move towards, what can I do? So many of us kind of sit back and think, I can't do anything. What can I do? I'll just, sit here quietly. But there's a huge amount that we can do. And maybe the question needs to be asked of the individual, at the very beginning is how would you serve mankind? If that it was asked to you instead of what career do you want to do, where does your brain go? What does your mind think of? Do you immediately think of something completely different to what you're doing now and think, oh, but that's just not possible? Or do you look at what you're doing and actually it adds value to it? And you think, wow, you know, if I was to serve mankind, I'd be doing exactly what I'm doing. So it's amazing. Maybe that too is the lack of meaning that we seem to lose along the way when we're trying to find ourselves, or maybe when we're just focusing on the wrong thing. And maybe a focus on service is something that we need. I found this question really interesting, and the interesting part about it was it has generated some great conversation with people, and it's made people literally stop in their tracks and think, oh, how would I do it? But as I'm looking at this one, because I also love to look at what different types of writings say, as I said, service for me is a pillar of what the longer term or the bigger goal is, a bigger vision of unity. And there's a quote, as I was pulling this idea together and thinking I'm going to ask the question of you all, I found a quote that I actually have on my fridge and I go past every day. And I think it's a really nice way of kind of reminding and reinforcing this idea of service. And I want to share that with you as well. So the quote is from Baha'u'llah, it's from the tablets of Baha'u'llah. And there's one part in particular that we will break down, but I will read the quote in full to you now. O ye men of wisdom among nations, shut your eyes to estrangement, then fix your gaze upon unity. Cleave tenaciously unto that which will lead to the well-being and tranquility of all mankind. This span of earth is but one homeland and one habitation. It behoveth you to abandon vainglory, which causeth alienation, and to set your hearts on whatever will ensure harmony. Now, this is a beautiful quote on unity, and obviously today we're talking about service, but again, it's about the pillars of what creates that. And I feel that as individuals, we have the capacity to lead ourselves towards a more united and peaceful existence, human experience, connection, if we were to just shift some of our structures that we have today. Now, part of this quote that I love is the line, cleave tenaciously unto that which will lead to the well-being and tranquility of all mankind. Now, for you, you're probably listening to that going, oh yeah, that sounds nice. But when you really break it down and think about what they're saying here, what Baha'u'llah is saying, which is cleave. So cleave means to stick fast to adhere strongly to. One of my favorite definitions is very strongly involved or emotionally attached. It kind of adds even more depth to the word. So to cleave, to hold tight or hold tenaciously. So tenaciously means a firm hold or indeterminate or unwavering manner. So to hold so tight, you know, to be emotionally attached and hold in an unwavering manner unto that which will lead to the well-being and tranquility of all mankind. And if we were to figure out instead what job do we want to do, but rather think about how do we want to serve mankind, and if we found how we want to serve mankind and we figured out our service and we aligned that to part of our individual purpose and we cleave tenaciously unto that which was only going to lead to the well-being and tranquility of all mankind, could you imagine the type of space that we could live in? And I think that's worth a consideration, especially in a time where there is a lot of difficulty and despair that's happening around the world, and we think we can't do much, but maybe there's a lot that we can do, and a lot of it is just going to start with a question to ourselves. So have a think about that. Put it in perspective for yourself. Have a think about what you do now. Don't feel bad about what you do if you don't feel that it is. Use it as action. Use it as a call to action to figure out what it is you want to do. And ask people around you. Ask young people, especially those who are about to step into university, who are at school, who are thinking about what their future looks like. Don't just think about what will be self-serving. Don't just think about what type of job you think you want, because that is merely vain imaginations of the individual trying to feed into the ego. But instead, ask yourself the question, how would you serve mankind?